I've realised that New Year's resolutions are a fucking waste of time for me. I'm going to quit. It's not going to happen. And I'm going to try the just fly by the seat of my pants approach.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Deep Drop for another year. It's 2024. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, all the things that you do and say. It is unbelievably exciting to be back in the chair in front of the microphone. Luke McCredden here and Adam Ring. The hangover has just eased off enough for us to get back into things.
Yeah, that's right. Just enough for us to turn the microphones on and start again. And Luke, Happy New Year to you.
You
Merry
too.
Christmas. I know we've spoken a fair bit over there, a little holiday break there, but I just wanted to put it out there to the world. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas.
I don't reckon I've been this pumped to get back into a production in, I'm going to say ever.
Well, a lot of conversations you and I had over the break, all of which will be revealed in due time. And I want to say it's my favourite, but also my least favourite time of the year. Because I've decided that I've clocked something in my life, Luke.
Have you?
I have. I'm starting 2024 with a bang.
Wow. What have you done?
And I've clocked just a little bit of life, just a little bit.
Yeah, good.
Just a slither.
Good.
And I've decided that I've clocked the fact that at the start of every year, I'm really, really good at coming up with all these things I want to achieve and then abandoning 99% of them by week one. So I sat down and thought, righto, what am I going to do for 2024? And it was, and fishing based, I'm just talking fishing. I come up with these things and I got the list down to where I was happy. And then I'm like, fuck, I won't do any of that.
So you're saying your achievement is quitting before you started?
Yep. So I've realised that New Year's resolutions are a fucking waste of time for me. I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
It's not what's going to happen, and I'm going to try the just fly by the seat of my pants approach.
I don't mind that.
Just see what presents itself.
But you know what though?
And see what happens.
There's something in that, and because fishing is kind of, to a degree, like that. You can't really plan out your year. You struggle to plan out a week because the weather changes 18 times before you get to do what you want to do. So you might be onto something. You might actually, in quitting before you've even started, you might actually achieve more than most people.
It's a scary thought, Luke. It's a scary thought because I'll give you a perfect example, all right? So I had a little bit of time off over Christmas. I was off from essentially the week leading into Christmas, and I went back on the 3rd of January. Mm-hmm. And do you know how many days I spent of those fishing?
I'm going to take a stab in the dark. Single figures.
Yep.
Below 5.
It might rhyme with 0.
Do you know what, though? It's a stupid time of year, Adam. It's stupid. There's so much on.
Yeah. And listen, I had a good break. I'm making it sound like it was a prick of a break. No, it wasn't. I enjoyed every day of it. But I think I like the idea of fishing more when not everybody's on holidays.
Yes. Yeah, no, look, and you know, as a coastal local, Adam, it is not a very popular time for fishing for the locals down in most parts of that live on the water, whether it be fresh, salt, whatever. But geez, it's a popular time of year to be fishing in general, which is awesome. I'm sounding very sort of arrogant and selfish when I say all that, but it's sensational. And the beauty of down where I am, mate, the fishing didn't stop. It was apart from some inclement weather, the fishing's been awesome, which has been great. So it has been really cool to see plenty of boats out and about.
And there's been some really cool reports. I mean, we're a Victorian-based program. Luke and the Kingfish are just getting going, and there's been some proper ones too, not just the sprinkled-in rats that we've become accustomed to over the last couple of years, but the bluefin is starting to hammer
Heaps.
again. I've been chatting to Brett Geddes, the Gippy Lakes, between potential flood events, has been fishing pretty good. The flathead fishing has been really good, and the King George whiting are just firing up now. And and Luke, I know you have done a little bit of fishing over the break, and you've tapped into something that went straight to the top of my list for things that I would love to experiment and work out.
Drinking on a boat
for this year.
Oh, no,
I've nailed that already.
No. Yep.
But you've been doing something exciting. We have spoken about it on the program before, but you've got me. I haven't even tried it once.
Listen,
and you've already got me.
I'll start by saying I've fished more than I anticipated, and that's still only a few times, because it's not. Yeah, like I said, it's. But when the weather's there and there's some friends around that are encourage you to jump on their boat, I'm lucky. I do have a few boats that I just jump on without invite. I'll just jump on. So we're going. Didge, I know you're listening, pal. Appreciate your time. New boat, sensational, by the way. It's got one of those foot pedals, foot throttles, some American
nice.
thing. Yeah. I'm not going to try and get into detail about the boat because I don't know enough about it. But we've spoken about it on the show several times. Adam, whiting, King George whiting on soft plastics.
It's a thing. It's not just. It's not one of the bullshit things that we made up on this.
Oh, you
show,
mean
Luke?
You mean like Carpathon?
Yeah.
Oh no, that still
real.
might happen. Yeah.
Fishing in the Olympics. Anyway, I digress.
Still might happen. No, it's absolutely real, and I have said, and I'll say it again. This isn't something that I've created. It's been happening down this neck of the woods for quite a while, and I've been lucky enough to fish with guys like John Didge. You might know him from Jigman and this sort of Bellarine Peninsula. And mate, it's an absolute way of fishing for King George whiting down there. I still wouldn't say it's super common. Like most people will still go drop a burley pot and drop some baits and do really well doing it that way. But I guess I think for me it's just the action and the non-stop action and the fun of it and the challenge. It does add a challenge because you could sit there and go, what? And I have done. What am I doing? Why don't I just get a a pippy and a strip of squid and catch them just normally and not have any dramas? But it's just, I think for me, and you said this the other day when we were on the phone, it's taking a species that we've fished for decades and fished for successfully for decades. When I say we, I mean the recreational fishing population, but we're taking a species and now we're just putting another spin on it, which is really exciting again. And not that there's anything wrong with bait fishing for whiting or doing anything like that, but it's opened up another door. And while I will forever be grateful for turtleback worms because they are just dynamite on these whiting, I just think the door's ajar now to start thinking about other ways of catching whiting. So I know you might not necessarily want to go down that path right now, Ads, but I'm stealing it from you. But yes, plackies, whiting. Oh, mate, I could do it every day.
Well, what makes it so, I'm not going to say different. I mean, catching fish on soft plastics isn't different, and I think the natural progression of a species is to switch them over from a bait to a lure. But King George whiting have been the fish that have resisted the urge for anybody to throw lures forever. And it's not like whiting fishing is getting boring either. I would argue, and I may have already changed my mind on it. I would say King George whiting, as far as the Victorian bays, Port Phillip Bay and Western Port, I would say they're now the premier species of both. I think they've eclipsed snapper. I think snapper still brings a unique excitement that still King George whiting doesn't quite hit. I think you can't beat the pinnacle of snapper, but I think as an overall species for people to target, I think King George whiting are number one. And I think that has happened fairly recently. But you said before, we've never had a problem catching whiting.
Can I just pause right there just for a moment? It's 2024, first episode in. I'm going to throw to the listeners for the first time for the year. And it's a simple one. And it's going to go up on Instagram as well. It'll be on the Spotify platform to give us an answer. If you're a Victorian... Well, it doesn't matter where you're from.
Doesn't
Snapper
matter.
or King George whiting. It's as simple as that. no more detail required. Just tell us which one. Continue, my friend.
That's a good one, actually. But we haven't had an issue catching King George whiting. But I also wouldn't say that we're bored of it to the point where we've had to try and find a different way to catch them. It's not boring. It didn't fade. It didn't... And I remember the snapper explosion of soft plastics.
Yep.
When that happened in Port Phillip Bay. And it happened because people were bored of catching them on bait. It was too easy.
Yeah.
We just had an unbelievable year in Victoria. It was a record-breaking year. The fish were thick. The weather, for the most part, sort of played the game. So it was just easy to catch them.
You were in the thick of that. You were right there at the when that was all happening. Is that some of the commentary that you were hearing, that people going, I'm sick of it's just getting easy. I want a bit more of a challenge, or
not so much sick of it, or not so much easy. It's just the year was that good.
Yeah.
That a lot of people had caught what they would normally catch in a full season of snapper fishing. They'd caught them by October.
Yeah, gotcha.
Now, for those listening, snapper fever doesn't really hit now until late October. So,
you could argue after Cup weekend, first weekend in November. Yeah.
So and things change, but everybody just caught anyone who fished. They were everywhere. I can't explain it. They were literally everywhere.
Yeah.
So people started fishing different methods because they could. They didn't feel like they were risking not catching one and wasting a day because the snapper were that thick. They'd already caught heaps on baits. Now it was time to experiment. Which brings me back to the whiting on soft plastics. This is why I think it could be quite a big thing, because we're not mucking around with it because whiting fishing's too easy. We're mucking around with it because, and I think you're in the hub of it, Luke. I think this started, the conception of soft plastic fishing for King George whiting happened on the Bellarine Peninsula. And I would, if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be corrected, because I don't know. This is from my knowledge of the subject. It seems like the Ballarine's the hub of it. It started there, it's growing from there, and it's moving out. I think the potential's unlimited. But it wasn't done because whiting fishing was so easy. It was done because I think there's something that feels weird about anchoring in shallow water.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's a total mindset. And some people do it and do it really successfully, but Port Phillip Bay especially is such a different beast to Western Port. It's still, I know there's some tidal water where you're fishing down there, Luke. It's generally crystal clear. I don't know. I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of staying on the move, fishing for King George whiting, rather than anchoring in one spot and hoping that you hit that school that's on the chew at the one time. And plastics, it's so lends itself. It's a perfect match for drift fishing, or whether you're using electric motor or whatever you're doing.
It's a really interesting point, because we were talking about this recently. I was fishing with Lee Rayner, and we were saying how when you're whiting fishing at anchor, you kind of get into a spot that looks right, and then you chuck a burley pot down, some baits around, hoping that you can either bring them in or they're thereabouts and you've found them. But this is one thing about lure fishing on the move is always an advantage for you. You're constantly just moving until you find them, and you're casting, and you're covering so much ground, and it's no different, because quite often you'll, with the whiting and the plastics, you'll be picking them up, and then you'll just hit a spot where you could see that there must be a whole bunch of them in that area, because it'll just be bang, 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 bang. But you're working your way there, so you're sort of not saying you're wasting your time at anchor if they're not there, because you can bring them in with burley. No dramas. It's what happens. But I don't know, there's something about just being on the move and searching and doing it that way that I think is an advantage for sure. It's
hard to try and picture if you haven't fished lures before, or you haven't fished soft plastics before, and you want to try and work out the easiest way to get into it. I think we've already given the clues to that on the podcast. Look, we've spoken about bait fishing, but attacking it from a lure fisherman's perspective, and I think this is a great way to get into this for King George whiting. If you're not sure, there's an easy way to start. If you're anchored up and catching King George whiting already on bait, just wind the baits in for a sec and pop one out, because I haven't done this yet. I haven't tried it. Luke, before I start, we delve into how you would get into it. Is it one of those things that takes you a little bit to get your eye in on what you're actually looking for with the plastic, as far as the bite, the take, the movement? Because the ultimate battle with any sort of lure fishing, and I think soft plastics, it can be even harder to wrap your head around than, say, constant moving hard body lure. You're never quite sure if you're doing it right. Am I working too fast? Am I working too slow? Is the jig head too heavy? Is it too light? Am I making contact with the bottom? Is the current?
I love that, though. I think that's what fishing should be about.
But it does scare a lot of people off.
No, it does. Yeah, for sure. But I think it's a funny one, because I reckon in the last 3 trips out on the whiting that I've done, I've learnt 3 different things, and not completely miles apart from each other, but just little things that, okay, I'll try that for this next sort of drift, and you go, that kind of worked for me, or it didn't. But constant learning, and we've spoken about it on the podcast before when we've gotten a bit serious, constant learning is the key. Like, the minute you think you know it all, give it away, because you've lost the love for it. So you just got to be open to it. I think it's not hard, but it's one of those ones that you need a few, I reckon, trips in and under the belt to get the feel for what you're doing, because you're talking about a fish that typically has that sort of vacuum feeding action, as opposed to a strike and turn at a head into a snag type situation. So it's a different bite than, for example, when you'll quite often come across flathead when you're out there whiting fishing, and the difference in bite is unbelievable. Like, you just go, well, that's not a whiting, that's a flathead, like, straight away. So there's learning the bite, which is always, I suppose that's always a part of any sort of lure fishing, or even bait fishing to a degree, but they're not, it's not I just got to hit fish on board. Like, you fuck about with them for so long, because quite often they're just sucking it, or they're just, and you're using a worm, so there's a fair bit of worm off the hook. You can use stingers, some people do, which will get hookups, but I think it's about learning your own rhythm as well. It's not mind blowing, is what I'm trying to get at. It's very, very doable, but it's just a case of putting a few sessions in to get a rhythm. But again, and look, as I'll always mention it, that I'm fortunate enough to fish with a couple of locals down here who are very good at it. But as I said, even going back to when I first did it with them, up until now, the last few sessions, still learning little bits and little tricks and little techniques and ways to have a look at it. So it is unusual. If you're let's say a soft plastics, an estuary fisherman with soft plastics, it is a bit different. It is a bit of a different feel, as far as, it's not a bite probably like you'll get off many of those estuary species, particularly down south. But it's still all about the feel, and that, because it's not it's I guess there is an element of finesse, but it's kind of just getting in a rhythm and understanding that you're going to get these bites. If you get a big one that's up around 40 plus centimeters, it'll typically bite and you're on. That's very generalizing, but anything, in my experience, smaller, you're playing a game with for 10 minutes. And this is where it blew my mind a bit, and I know a couple of people I've fished with recently. They don't have a crack at your plastic once and then disappear if they don't hook up. They'll you might be 15 metres from the boat where you start getting a bite, and they will follow it and keep biting it all the way back to the boat.
So just that bit there is huge for anyone trying to get into it.
Yeah.
You're going to get given plenty of opportunities to actually work it out. It's not like... Because before I started talking to you about it, where I've got all of my information on soft plastics fishing for whiting, It seems my thought process would be it would be ultra finesse. You're going to get a lot of hits a long way away from the boat, and if you don't convert the first one or maybe two, you may as well wind in a recast.
Yeah, no.
That's what I envisioned it would be like.
Yep.
But hearing that it's not
No.
is actually quite comforting, especially for those that have never soft plastics fished before or have limited experience with it.
Yeah.
These fish are going to give you an opportunity to work it out.
100%. 100%. You will go through soft baits, like just heads up, you'll need a few packets with you. I'm not being silly about it, because they're not, they'll pull them off the hook, or you'll have a fucking dirty toady swim past and take a chunk out of it or something like that. And you can't, once it loses its tail, you got to rip it off and go again. But the good thing is whiting won't chew them. I won't say won't chew them up. They won't come in for a bite and just bite it off.
Yeah,
they're all about got that suck motion. They do have raspy sort of, I suppose, almost not quite as sharp or raspy as a flathead, but going down that path. So they'll chew them up a little bit, but they will pull them off quite a bit. A lot of, like I mentioned, stingers before. It's probably not the worst way to get into it. I personally haven't used stingers at all.
That's another interesting one for me, because my instant thought process was, if I don't have a stinger, I'm killing my chances. Only because the bait's long and they don't feed, their mouths aren't big enough to inhale a full worm. I find it really interesting that you're not using stingers. But again, I don't have the experience.
No, and plenty of people do. And I fished the other day, and the person I was with did for part of the session, and I reckon definitely got more fish to the boat. But
are you getting smaller fish with stingers?
Yeah, because you're getting every fish that bites it. Well, not every fish, but more.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm at this point. If maybe we want to go here, right? So turtleback worms is a 4-inch and a 7-inch. 4-inch, you can pretty much use the whole thing. You might need to take it, half a centimetre off or something, just to shorten it up. They're a finer body, narrower body. I now use, and my choice is the 7-inch, and take an inch off. So it's still at least 5.5 inches long, this plastic, but it's a fatter body. And in my personal opinion and experience, I think I get more bigger fish with that, because I think the profile of the worm body is bigger and more solid. And every time I get a 40, it's down its throat. I had to get a jig head out with pliers the other day of a whiting. Like, when have you ever had to do that with a hook? Like, maybe it swallows it, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm talking, they eat it and it stays eaten. Like, you know? Whereas the smaller ones, you'll quite often, they'll just be hanging on, or you've just clipped them in the lip or something like that. But I feel like the big, and don't get me wrong, as with all lure fishing, big ones will eat small lures too. But Jesus, I reckon there's something in these 7-inch bodies, just a bit thicker and fatter. You can cut them down. You can cut them right down if you want, but there's something about having that fatter body, I reckon. Having said that, we have mucked around with other plastic styles too, and you'll get bites, but it's, in my short experience doing this, you just don't get as many or as solid bites as you do with turtleback worms.
Well, I've already because my mission, now that I have started work again, I'm in a lot of different tackle shops. I've got a list of lures that I'm going to go and buy.
Well, turtleback worms aren't always easy to get, so
that's
start
right.
collecting it.
But I'm more thinking of it from the aspect of, listen, you can't argue with gulp. It works.
You can't.
But there's so much about gulp that gives me the shits, Luke.
That's so much.
The juice stinks.
Yeah.
It dries out. So
I have a bit of a rule on board that once I've opened a packet, I'm using the whole packet. Like, when I'm not taking an open packet home, I will not. Yeah,
because I hate that they dry out. But they're so good. So I'm going to buy some. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, and I know you can get the tubs to fill up with that juice.
Yeah,
and
but
put
I'm
a lid
not
on
doing
and
that
stuff.
shit. I'll end up spilling it all over my joint.
You will too.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
So, look, listen, I'm going to put it out there, Ads, because we can talk about this as long as you want, because I love it. But I think we could just about leave it. And I'm going to bring you down here to the Bellarine Peninsula. We're going fishing, but we're not just going to go fishing. I'm going to organise, and I reckon he's listening. So John Didge, who's he's a bit of my godfather down here. We're coming out. You're taking us for a fish. And then I reckon we go back to Didge's house, have a couple of quieties, and hit record. And we get the
100%.
big fella on the microphone, and we go for it. What do you reckon?
Oh, I'm in.
All right, let's do that,
Yeah,
because you're going to, and we will get some content.
So we're going to go to we'll go for a full deep dive on whiting on plastic.
Oh, mate, yep. And
I'm so in.
yeah, you'll be drinking gulp juice by the end of the night.
Because I reckon the best thing of the trip, I'm going to rock up with all these things that I think are going to work, and John's going to go, nah.
Yeah.
Who bought this dickhead?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There'll be plenty of that. Don't worry. So, listen, and the reason I say that too, it's a two-parter. One is, again, we can talk about this for ages.
Yeah.
But this is the sort of thing that I suggest to not just you, and we'll do it, other people, is just have a go, because I think you'll soon find out why I'm hooked on it. Like I could do this. Like, it is just so much fun. They fight like crazy. It's kind of one of those ones that I think we've spoken about before with snapper. You tend to get a better whack and a screaming run.
They do hit it harder, like, because I think snapper do. I think snapper hit lures.
No, I agree. Yeah. No, I think the whiting do for sure. Yeah, yeah. The first whack, if you get a decent one, if it just hits it and runs, even if you haven't hooked it, you sort of shit yourself a little bit. Because ultimately you're only using, 1 to 3, 2 to 4 kilo outfits, and they'll take line.
Right. All right, well, let's pencil that. I've got so many questions. Let's pencil that in, because I'm really hanging to experience it for myself too, because I've got endless ideas, and I know most of them will be dog shit, but it'll be good to work it out. But look, before we wrap this up, something else happened this week, and I've got to talk to you about it, because it made me think.
Wait, is this an on-air conversation?
It's an on-air conversation.
Okay,
yeah,
I'm just checking.
I was chatting to a good mate of ours. He'll remain unnamed. He's been doing a bit, and yeah, he's been having a crack. There's a few kings around at the moment, Luke. It's not a secret that they're everywhere. But he said, "Oh, you know, I'm going to do a few after work sessions or whatever. You should come along." I'm like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm not going to turn down a kingy trip." But
You're not an idiot.
But he said something that concerned me, Luke. He said that recently he's got a couple of real good fish recently, meter 15s, like meter 20s, like good ones,
real good.
But he's sort of been spending between like 9 to 12 hours on the water, and coming home with like 1 or 2 fish, and they're real good ones. They're over a meter.
Yeah.
Would you? My question. Is that a successful day?
That's a great question.
Would you sit back at the end and go, "Fuck, that was good"?
I mean, you've got to, if that's your target, and you've accomplished what you set out to achieve, regardless of the effort. Because I mean, fishing takes effort. We know that. Then yeah, it's a success for sure. But my question is, this I don't mean this to sound rude, but should you need that long to get 1 or 2 fish? That's covering a tide and a half or two. You know what I mean? Like you're crossing. You're sort of fishing all of the tides.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, I don't know. I mean, you can't say it's not a. That's a toughie. That's a toughie. Yeah. What do you think?
My first thought was fuck that. But
What about this then? If I put this spin on it, if you were desperate to catch a barramundi, and you've flown to Darwin, you've paid the expense, airfares and accommodation, you've paid a guide, you've gone out, and you only managed one, but it's a barra, and that's all you ever wanted to catch, and then you flew home, and is that a successful trip?
Fuck no. No way.
But you got the fish that you've been dreaming of catching your whole
It's a
life.
$15,000 fish.
Yeah. Okay.
Because, I guess there's a specific type of fishermen that are like this, and they generally get the good fish. Oh, they do get them. And so I guess it's worth it for them. But it's like these winter cod fishermen that before live scope would grind away for 2.5, 3 days, and they might get a shot at 2 fish. To me, that does not sound appealing.
It's case by case too, isn't it? Because the cod thing, but because you could argue marlin fishing, you're trolling around, fucking sniffing diesel fumes for 8 hours to get one bite, and they raise the flag on that. You know what I'm saying?
It's weird. It's weird.
I think, and we speak about it a lot. Reality is, you just have to put the time in on anything that you're doing. So
does when you catch the fish in that 12 hours matter? Would you, because if you were on a 12 hour, say you were told if you fish for 12 hours tomorrow, you are going to catch, and I'll just use kingfish because that's what you are going to catch, a kingy that's going to go $1.20.
But I've got to fish for 12 hours?
You've got to fish for 12 hours. If you caught it though, exactly.
Nah.
Exactly. But do you think you would be more inclined to say it's worth it if you caught that fish in the first hour or the last hour?
Yeah, but if I got it in the first hour, I'd fucking come home.
Oh, you're one of those guys.
No, but I'm not. But I think what you'll find is if you got that in the first hour, and then even if you fish for another 4 hours, you'd pull the pin. You wouldn't be fishing for 12 hours.
Actually, yeah, you're right. Because the monkey's off the back.
Yeah, you've done it.
The monkey's off the back.
Oh, I would have liked 2 or 3, but got the one. Let's call it. Let's go have a beer. If you get it in the 12th hour, how do you feel about it? Do you go, well, thank fuck for that? Is it more of a relief and it's just we can go now, let's get the hell out of here?
Or do you find because you're so, the end of the session, you're so fresh off catching the fish, you're on the way home in the car calling all your mates going, I fucking did it.
Maybe.
And it was nuts. Because if you get it at the end, do you really quickly forget the 11 hours where nothing happened?
Probably, because we've all put in so many hours, that you sort of forget about, don't you? But when you're calling your mates in the car on the way home, do you mention that you fished for 12 hours to get that one fish? You probably leave that detail out, don't you?
Well, it's okay. Well, that's another question in itself. Does anyone talk about how long it took them to get it? That's not the social media way, Luke.
No, it's not. It's not. No, because, it's you catch meter cod and flathead and, 20 kilo kingfish in the first 5 minutes on most trips, don't you?
Well, that's exactly why...
On social media.
Well, that's exactly why you take photos of it at 5 different angles, and essentially you've caught 5.
Well, that's right. Yep. 5 in 5 minutes.
5... So big time.
And all you have to do is change the length by a centimetre or 2.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah, just bend the tail a little bit. Effort versus reward. It's a great concept for a conversation.
Yeah, like what's actually worth it? Because you're right. I've done lengthy hours like that, and caught
it's funny, isn't it?
And never thought, fuck, that was a waste of time.
Nah, because, and I was about to say to you, in all honesty, it's all worth it when it comes to fishing. It is all worth it because it's But then if you actually stop for a minute and go, is it?
Yeah.
Is it all worth it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we're getting old, ads.
I think
because I reckon in let's wind the clock back 15, 20 years, we would say I'll do 48 hours in the water, no problem.
True.
Well, maybe not 48, but you know what I'm saying.
Do you think that's how we justify that this is the greatest pastime in the history of man? Because you sit back and you go, it was all worth it.
Probably.
Because the dude that never catches it doesn't sit back and go, fuck, I tried hard, but I couldn't get it. So worth it.
No.
It wasn't.
No, what's he saying? This is shit.
Yeah, he's playing golf now.
He's playing golf now. And he's might have moved on from that because he's really struggling with golf.
Yeah. He's onto darts or crochet or something.
Yeah, great. Yeah, good one. Okay, that's a really interesting one. So I'd like to ask the punters ads, but I'm just trying to think of how we need to word it.
Yeah.
Yellow and do we want to be specific? Yellowtail kingfish versus reward.
No, I think upper echelon. Like it's in the upper echelon of size for whatever species, whether it's a.
Well, the only reason I was going to stick with that is because, and I know this isn't what you're talking about, but effort versus reward for something like a kingfish is a good question in that the gear, the amount of time you need to be technical about your gear.
Well,
and your...
I think effort's a weird one because if you get it, the effort's 100% worth it. Because
yeah, okay, so maybe that's not the question. What are we asking?
But it's more, well, I guess 15 hours of the water on the water, 12, that's effort. No one wants to do that for one fish.
No. Okay,
we'll work out how to word it, but just tell us: is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Jesus.
Yeah. Maybe that's just the question: is it worth it?
I just think about if you had to catch a kingfish and you had to be on the water 12 hours to catch one, I'd probably buy a plane ticket to New Zealand. So I'll just get one on the first hour, thanks.
Yeah, it's probably cost you that much in fuel.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Jesus Christ. Yeah, all right, not bad. So we're hitting the water. It's so good to be back. We're going to be whiting fishing ads. So that's what we're going to be doing real soon. We're going to record about it, talk about it, we'll capture some moments to share with you guys on Instagram. But more importantly, welcome back to the Deep Drop. 2024 is here, ads. I'm pumped, and thanks everyone out there for staying in touch because we had some great messages over the Christmas break, which was really cool. We should actually go through a few at some point, but there was some videos of a couple of our keen listeners that were sitting under a gazebo in the water catching carp from their deck chairs, sinking cans.
Nice.
And just said carp. I think the message was
pre-fishing carpathon.
Oh no, I think they referenced Carpathon.
Yeah,
I think the message was something along the lines of Carpathon is alive.
Let's get it trending. #Carpathon.
Oh, mate, it was sensational. But it was plenty of that. So it was great to see everyone. Like I said, plenty of people out and about on the water, which was awesome. The fishing seemed really good.
Yeah, fishing seemed
just as a general rule across the board, there was some really good fishing down in Tassie.
Yep.
Got a couple of messages from some people down there, which is awesome. So keep it up. Keep getting amongst it. Hopefully, you know what I hope? I hope there's people listening that are still on holidays. Just milk those holidays for as long as you can.
Definitely do it.
Enjoy it. But it's bloody good to be back. It's a whole new year. We've got a shitload coming up this year, ads, that we're keen to share with you guys very shortly. But we're open to ideas. If you want us to do, if you've got some stuff you want to throw our way, and let us know. I think one of the things we might have said, off air ads when we were chatting about the 2024 season was nothing's off limits for the Deep Drop this year.
Yeah.
Nothing. Well, maybe not nothing, but.
Oh.
Anyway, stay tuned. It's going to be a massive one, and like I said, I'm genuinely excited to be back, mate. It's good to see you on the end of that microphone, and can't wait to hear from all of you guys out there listening. Get involved. Let's do this. 2024, bring it on. See you soon.